Alright, on this video I'm going to do a commentary. It's very, very important that I explain how to use an angle grinder when I cut a hole in a piece of tile, and you don't want to hear all the noise of an angle grinder. I have the spare flange that I carry around with me in my toolbox so that when I'm cutting for a toilet, and usually in the center of a piece of tile, it could be anywhere. In this case, it's a scrap piece of tile, and I'm using an angle grinder. This one in particular is Ryobi. It's a corded angle grinder, which I prefer because I don't like batteries. When they die on something like this, it's not a good thing. So I like the cord. It has a little bit more oomph, has a little more RPM to it. I use a 4-inch tile blade on here, and I take off the blade guard because the blade guard is usually down there by my hand, and I take it off. So if you're going to take off your blade guard, which I highly recommend, you might want to wear gloves, but just be very, very careful using an angle grinder with any kind of blade on it because it will cut you and it will not be a fun day for you. Okay, as you see, what I'm doing here is I'm at a real sharp angle here. All I'm doing is hitting that line of the circle that I made for my toilet flange. Very, very flat toward the tile. In other words, you're not going to get a circular cut if you try and, like up and down vertically. You have to go as horizontal as possible with this angle grinder. So you're just kind of taking your time and going the whole direction around the circle at this very low angle to begin with, because that's going to get you your circle mark. Then going forward, and I'll get to that point when we get there, you're going to slowly turn it upward, in other words, vertically, in order to do your final cut, which I'll get to later. I wanted to talk about that toilet flange on the right side. So when I'm doing tile on a floor, typically this would be for, well, you could use an angle grinder for just about any type of cut, but typically I'm using a toilet flange, an extra toilet flange that I bought at Home Depot, and I carry it around in my bucket full of tools and stuff like that. That is a very typical size of a toilet flange, and that's why I carry that around. It is trying to mark something freehand is very difficult. So having a template, which is actually the toilet flange, is integral in making this happen correctly, getting the right size. So if you see, I'm actually cutting right up to the line that I marked. And as I'm going around the second pass, you see I'm starting to go up vertically a little bit higher because I can do that now. I'm still cutting the inside part of the tile. I'm not touching the outside where the line is at. I'm not touching that. So what this angle grinder is doing, well, the wheel of the angle, the blade of the angle grinder that's on it, it's a tile blade. It's a diamond, as I said, 4-inch diamond blade. And what it's doing is it's shearing off the inside part of that tile so that it's getting it flatter and flatter and flatter. So by the third go around, I'm able to set it up almost vertically and just hit that crack that I've caused, because now I have on that right side there of the tile, it's more flat, and then obviously it's grinded down on the inside, which gives me a lot of leeway to be able to cut. Now, one of the things you're going to see at the end, because I cut so deeply, oh, and by the way, this is a piece of backer board that I have that's attached to. You could do it on plywood or anything like that, but you're going to need some clamps or whatever to hold it down. So when I get to the end, you're going to see that I cut so deeply that it actually cut all the way through the tile, but you don't have to do that. At this point right here, you could actually stop what you're doing. And typically back in the day, I would just go ahead and cut like an X right in the center of that piece of circle tile. And once you cut the X, you can kind of knock it out, take a little scrap piece of 2x4 or even any kind of wood or whatever, some type of soft, firm object, and you can hit those 4 sides of that X that you cut, and all 4 sides will drop out of it. But for demonstration purposes, I'm actually cutting through and through into this tile, and you'll see it just kind of lay there flat on the backer board when I'm finished. What else would I use this for? Oh, around like an escutcheon, an escutcheon. I call it a escutcheon plate for a shower valve when you're doing it on a wall. You could use, well, you could use it for anything except straight cut, unless you're really, really good. Straight cut won't work. See that? I cut it right through and through. So I just knock it off there. Now the inside of that is a little rough and it's not going to work. That if you put it on the toilet right now, it probably won't work. So you got to cut off, you got to shear off up to that line. So yeah, now I'm just holding the angle grinder at an angle, go figure, to kind of shear off and make it look pretty and all that stuff. I'm cutting up to the pencil line that I marked earlier, so it'll be a perfect fit. Some of the tile that you might purchase, well, some of the tile that your customer might purchase is a little bit less dense. I would put it like that. Most porcelain tile is pretty rugged and pretty dense, but a lower end, which this arguably is a lower end tile, sometimes when you start putting pressure on it, it'll just bust on you. Like the whole tile will just break on you. You got to start all over again. So keep that in mind. This is not a speed type of process. You want to go slow. This process especially, but even the other process. So if you have a really, really low grade type of tile, go slower than you saw me go, because this is real time right now. It took me, let's see, I'm at about 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So about 6 minutes ago is when I actually caused that hole to happen. And then the rest of this is just making it pretty. But on a lower grade type of tile, take your time on it. Yeah, and wear eye protection, because you're going to get little chips of that tile flying up at you. You might want to wear a dust mask too. It was a windy day when I was doing this, so I didn't really have to wear a dust mask, but yeah, you might think about that too. And you don't need to use water. If you have somebody to spritz water on it, no harm, no foul. But you see I did a dry cut on that. Perfect hole, just the way I like it. And then my flange fits perfectly inside of that, so I know it'll fit right on top of the toilet. So there you go. There'll be a link for the angle grinder in the description area if you want to get one of these things. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're going to call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.